Good Wednesday evening, listeners. Am I live? Good evening. Good Wednesday evening, listeners. And welcome to another edition of Conversations of Sistah here on my YouTube channel. I thank those who might be tuned in tonight for tonight's commentary and tonight's conversation. This week's conversation, it is always based on the communication that I receive throughout the week. And I do receive a lot of communication. So I had one of my listeners, she not only emailed me, but she called me as well for a conversation, you know, as I made time for that. But she said that the problem that she has is that she keeps attracting the same type of man. Why do we attract the same type of man? So I had asked her, what type of man is it that she's attracting? Like, tell me something. And she said that she keeps attracting men who are financially unable to be partners with her. She's at an age now wherein she's past the building stage. She's looking for someone to meet her on her level financially. And that is not happening. Then she said to me that she also attracts the same type of man, a man who is emotionally unavailable or emotionally immature. Why, she said, do I keep attracting the same man? That's a really good question as to why we keep attracting the same individuals. And I think that based upon our age and the lessons that we learn, we should outgrow this particular pattern as to why you would keep attracting the same type of man. I said to her, as far as the similarities, is because, or it could be because, what you are comfortable with. It's like you're familiar with that type of spirit. So, because you're familiar with that type of spirit, this is why you are attracting it. For those of you who may be just tuning in, tonight's conversation, why do I keep attracting the same type of individuals? It's like, why? That's just like me. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, I attract the same individual, but I have girlfriends who tell me that I always attract people that are wacky. But I think what they mean is that we could be out somewhere. Like, for example, last year, my girlfriend and I we went to a play in the city, and it was really hot this day. And I think the trains wasn't running. We couldn't get our train back, or our train was delayed out of the city, and we were supposed to take the train back to her house, back to her development, but the train was delayed. I think it was because of the heat. I just know it was extremely hot. But anyway, we had to take the train into Newark before we could take the train to where she lived. And when we got to Newark, it was like North Penn Station. I don't know. For anyone who lives in the tri state area, if you've ever been to North Penn Station, sometimes you meet some very weird individuals. And if they are weird, they are coming up to me because I don't know. She said that I attract the loonies. I don't know, but it's like I do. Even when I'm in the supermarket, it's like people walk up to me and they talk to me. And I've said that before on my show. I'm not necessarily attracting them, but I don't know. I guess it's something about me that makes them approach. So everybody was approaching us at North Penn Station. This one guy approached my girlfriend with a card, and I don't know what he said to her. All I know is that he did something with his hands, but he had this card on, and she cussed him out. She was like, ah, ah, ah. And I said to her, what did he say to you? And she said, are you freaking kidding me? She said, he was asking me if I wanted, if I wanted an Uber. She said, and when you want to get an Uber, that's something that you get through an app. People don't walk up to you with a card saying, do you want to get an Uber? So she knew right away it was a scam. I was just wondering what it was, but her thing is, don't even have a conversation with them because you know how you are when it comes to people. And I think that the reason why I attract people who can be kind of weird is because I'm empathetic. So, why do you attract men who are financially unstable? I don't know. Maybe you want to prove to men that you have the ability to be independent. And that means even taking care of them. I don't think that a man should be comfortable with a female taking care of them. I don't think that a man should be comfortable having a female pay for all of the dates, plan all of the dates. If he plans the date, he should take you out. Now, some women like to be independent, right? But it also turns some men off. But if you're paying for dates and you have this deep seated belief of what you are worthy of, it's a possibility as to these being the reasons why you keep attracting men who are financially unstable. And I think that it's kind of shisty when a man is comfortable allowing you to provide. And I can hear the brothers now saying, oh, but what about, when men are doing this for women? Or, what about, we do it, but you're supposed to do it. That is a man's innate, I don't know, nature to pay for the dates, to lead, to guide, because he is the man. I have a male friend. I kid you not. We went out one time. I think we went to dinner in a movie, and I suggested that I pay for the dinner. He cursed me out. As a matter of fact, I don't think he talked to me for a couple of months. And when he finally did talk to me, he said, I felt some kind of way because you offered to pay for dinner. He said, when you go out with me, don't ever do that. I insulted him. He said, I know that women today, they're independent, they're successful, they're doing their own thing. But when you go out with me, don't you dare offer to pay for anything. Because then what am I doing? He said, what's my role here? So he was very insulted. And I also know that men are also raised this way. I hear a lot of sisters saying that men today, they want the woman to take care of them. A lot of these men are looking for women to take care of them. And I remember my brother, my oldest brother, he talked about a lot of the women because he was living in South Carolina at the time with my parents. And he talked about how he worked with a lot of women who was taking care of their man. He said the man was at home in bed or at home looking after her children, and she was working and taking care of a man. And my brother thought that that was like a sin. He's like, a lot of these women are making men lazy by doing that because I don't think that a woman should by any means be taking care of a man. So I think that it has everything to do with your belief. And I think that if you have this independence that, oh my gosh, I can take care of my man, then this is why you keep attracting men who are financially unstable, because I just don't think that that's the norm. And if you are attracting this kind of man, then maybe you have this I can fix him mentality. I think. that I can fix him. So therefore, this is why I'm drawn to him, because I feel as though I can be financially responsible for him. And a lot of women do think that way. And it is a lot of women who are into marriages with men who are financially unstable. I had a girlfriend one time who told me that, her husband worked, but she made more money than he did. So because she made more money than he did, she basically carried the household. And, her husband, he had no issue with that because he felt like this is something that she wanted to do. So some women don't have a problem with taking that lead financially because it gives them a certain control, I guess, and a certain type of security. I don't know. I guess she's thinking, I take care of him, so he ain't going nowhere. You know, my money bans the house, so I know he's never going to leave me, really. So it's not like he can't roll over onto another woman who is willing to take care of him. So I think that when we attract people, because tonight's conversation is, why do we attract the same people? So if you keep attracting the same man who is financially unstable, then that means that you lack clear boundaries. Because I think that the relationship has to have boundaries. And see, I don't know. With me, I'm scared when I attract the wrong type of person. You don't want to, but sometimes it happens. But it scares me, and the reason why it scares me is because, when I was growing up, my mother used to always say that association brings on assimilation. Assimilation is association, meaning you're gonna be like the people that 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 you're around, that you're attracted to. I remember, and Lady Sings the Blues, when Diana Ross was on drugs and Billy D. Williams was like so disgusted with her, and he was like, you're taking us down, because he was in love with her. They were a couple. He saw them as one unit. He was like, baby, you taking me down. You dragging me down. And she said, no, I'm not, because there's nobody down that I want to be around. So you have to think about it. Like, think about it. Think about what you're attracting. Okay. So I'm attracting a man who's financially unstable. So what will happen if I become financially unstable? So what are we going to be? Both financially unstable? We're going to both create problems for us as a unit? Like, which one of us, or is both of us? Two incomes are always stronger than one. And that's how people see it. When you have a two income household, it's always stronger than one. But if you're attracting a man who is financially unstable, then building anything solid is going to be a challenge. I remember when my one of my aunts had married this fine guy. Oh my God, he was fine. And I was young, I was a little girl, and I had a crush on him. I just thought he was so fine. And when I was growing older and they had gotten a divorce, I had asked her, I said, oh my God, what happened? Why did the marriage end? And she said, he didn't want to work, you know? And it was like my aunt, she had it going on. She had stability, she had a good paying job, she had a nice shape, like she had it going on. So she had married someone who was fine, but he was not bringing home a paycheck. And women want stability. And when there is no stability, that's a turnoff. I don't care how fine you are. If there is no stability and there is no consistency, that's a turnoff, because it has to be more to a relationship. It has to have some type of substance. So, in order to break this pattern, you have to shift your approach. You have to set expectations that are a little higher. You got to kind of come up here with your expectations, because when you start dating and meeting, you're going to have those conversations. What do you do for a living? Where do you work? How long have you been there? Things like that. What are your goals? And you want to make sure that those things align, because if they align, then you know that there's possibility. And don't get me wrong, anybody can lose their financial income. That can happen at any time, especially in today's economy. It's very possible. However, do they have gumption? Do they have the will? Do they have the enthusiasm to keep on going, to keep on building, to keep on pushing toward what they want? Or are they going to just lay down and die and expect you to take care of the household? Is that what they're going to do? These are things that you would want to know, because at the end of the day, if you're talking about anything serious, you don't want any surprises along the way. And that can happen. But you also need to know what that man's willpower is. You know, is he willing to meet you financially? Is he willing and determined to say, you're not in this alone? We're in this together, or we're going to be in this together. So it's like when you set your standards a little bit high, you will choose partners with more financial resources. Because if they have the ability to have financial resources, then you'll know that this is not someone that you'll have to care for, because you're setting a higher standard. You're defining your financial boundaries. So I think that when you define your financial boundaries, you make better choices. Now, if you keep attracting men that are broken, that are abusive, it's almost like you have to check yourself. You know, what is it that's in me that's attracting this type of individual, this type of man? Is it a low self esteem? Do I have independence issues? Do I feel like I have to have somebody? It's like, what is it within me that I would keep attracting the same one? I had gotten an email recently from somebody I dated in college. And, when I get emails from the past, from people from my past, I'm like, oh God, like why are they reaching out to me? I am so not that person. It's like I'm not there. And when you recognize that, you don't fall into the temptation of what if, or what could have been, because you're like, you're no longer there. That's like me and the guy that I dated in high school. We're the best of friends now. And I remember, we go out every now and again. And I remember the first time we went out, I just had this excitement because I dated him in high school. And I don't know what I expected. I don't know. I have no idea what I expected. But when he and I went out, there was like nothing there. It was it was like it was just like, I don't know, hanging out with a friend. It was very different. And when I came home that night and I thought about it and I meditated on it and I prayed about it, this little voice said to me, you are not who you were in high school. And there are some things that you cannot rekindle with the new you. And that's not a bad thing, but it just signals growth. Because at the end of the day, we should be growing. We should not be where we were. And I don't know, sometimes it happens for people. You hear about how they go to their class reunions and they hooked up with an old high school sweetheart, and when you think about it, you're like, really? You still felt that way, like that spark was still there, or that spark could come back, that you attracted what you had then, and was the relationship so great that it was worth exploring again? So these are all the things that you have to consider. I think that as an individual, when you grow, when you learn from experiences, you know what you want. And based upon what you want, you will start attracting what you prefer. And don't get me wrong, and don't misunderstand me. No one is perfect, but perfection has nothing to do with ability. So it's like you have to be able to distinguish reality versus truth, reality versus false figure. You have to be able to not live in this fantasy of what might be. You have to deal with what's before you now. And you have to think, you have to pray, and you have to know and be determined that this is something that I am not going to live through again. You have to you have to know it. And you can only know that by being intuitive. So I think what also helps too is, just don't have sex with the person so quickly. Like don't give in to that desire, because when you preserve that over time, you have clarity of what it is that you're dealing with. Sex has a way of clouding your judgment, and you don't want your judgment to be clouded. And when judgments are clouded, you become confused, and bam, before you know it, you're right back with the same type of man and the same type of relationship. You need to know what's different. And when you know what's different, then you know what's not being repeated. So, how do you stop attracting the same type of individual? That is how you learn, you grow, and you raise the bar. And I think that when you raise the bar, you have to be realistic in the relationship and what you want, and ensure that certain patterns are not going to repeat. And there's nothing wrong with having conversations. Who do you expect to pay for dates? Are we going on dates? How often do you want to go out? Do you want to go out every week? Do you want to go out every other week? Are we going to be creative in our dating? There's nothing wrong with asking questions, because you want to know. You want to know so that you don't waste your time. You want to know because you want to identify if this is something that is on repeat, because you don't want to keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again, because that does not signal growth. And you want to grow beyond the things that have hurt you and those things that have disappointed you. You want to grow beyond that. And the only way to do that is to do it different, is to raise your expectations, is to discuss what those expectations should be. And when you do that, that's how you can determine that you're not going back. That's how I determine it. When I have people from my past that I may have dated reach out to me, you know, I may just send like a quick note. I hope all is well. Take care. Something to that nature. If I have no desire to pick up where we left off, then that's the extent of the communication. It's like you have to be determined that you want a new thing, that you're going to do a new thing. And when you have this new thing in your head and in your spirit, you will start attracting the new thing and not the old thing, because you don't want the old thing. The old thing has passed away. You want the new thing. And the new thing is what what you're never happy for, is what you have not experienced. That's the new thing. And if that means falling back and not dating at all, then that's what you do. If that means that you have to withdraw yourself for clarity and growth, then that's what you do. Because at the end of the day, you will be a better you going into new decisions. And when you could think back on what you tolerated in the past, it's almost like, wow, I tolerated a lot, but I know what I'm not going to tolerate now. And when you are firm on that belief, then you will start attracting what you deserve, because then you'll know what it is you deserve. You'll understand and value your self worth, and you will demand that from that individual. So I hope this commentary answered that question. And for those of you who tuned in tonight, thank you so much. Some of you just tune in to hear what the commentary is. And if it's just like, I don't want to hear that, then you move on and be like, I'll try and catch her for the next conversation. And that's okay, that's fine. Different strokes for different folks. But for those of you who tuned in, I thank you so much. And I'll see you next week for the next conversation. Until then, have a great week. Bye.